The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our ServiceNow series, where we interview the best and brightest of the industry to share their story, advice, and views on the exciting world of ServiceNow and digital transformation.
Hey everybody, it's Mark Kelly here. Hope you're doing really well wherever you are in the world. So today I'm speaking with Jens Strandbygaard. Jens is a Senior Director of Product Management who is leading the ERP modernization in creative workflows. Jens, thank you very much for joining us on the Alldus podcast.
Thanks. Glad to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so you're living in Denmark
Yes.
at the moment, which we actually spoke about off air, is a wonderful country. Tell me a little bit about your journey into the world of ServiceNow.
Yeah, sure. So I've been working with SAP partners and technologies and products for 25 years in various businesses. And in 2015, we were involved with a migration project. SAP has launched a new version called S/4HANA, and customers need to migrate from ECC, the current or the old version of SAP, to S/4HANA. And we were tasked with this project, and we couldn't really get our heads around it. It was too complicated, and we didn't know how to attack it. So we decided to develop a new analysis tool that could help us understand better how customers had customized the SAP system. And that analysis then took off. We had customers and partners globally. And in 2021, we were approached by ServiceNow, who has a platform. We'll get back into that. But they found this very interesting. And in October, they acquired Gekkobrain. And we joined ServiceNow and have been working here ever since, still with a keen focus on SAP customers and their challenges.
For people that don't necessarily know about SAP or have probably heard about SAP, can you give a little bit of an overview of the scale and the complexity and the different modules that encompass SAP?
Sure. Well, SAP is a very old technology, you can say. It was founded back in 1972, originally focusing on payroll and then expanding into finance and then in enterprise resource planning. So it's a very, very, very big package, you can say. It has about 100 modules and sub-modules. It's got about 27 industry solutions. It's got more than 4,000 APIs. So it's a bit of a monster to manage, and there's no one person who really understands SAP. You've got experts in all of these modules and sub-modules and various areas of SAP. So it's a very, very complex system. So integrating into that from the outside has proven to be a challenge in many cases. And back in the old times, you can say back in the earlier days, it was a monolithic system. So you're not really able to get into it from the outside unless it was kind of Edifact or IDOC exchanges. So if you needed something done in SAP, if you wanted it to do something special to support your competitive advantage, you had to build it yourself inside of SAP in their own programming language. And of course, since people have done that since the 90s, it's now become huge programs of a lot of spaghetti custom code inside of SAP that they're now trying to clean up.
So you can imagine trying to maintain that code, the amount of time, effort, if things aren't documented correctly, the cost of doing that, and it can be a whole department, I'm guessing, in itself, dedicated to just trying to. It kind of makes me feel like a finger in the dam in terms of just not letting it overflow and just being on top of that, and it doesn't necessarily seem like the best workflow.
No, and when you say department, I would say in most companies it's hundreds of people that are involved in maintaining that technical debt. I was with a global electronics manufacturer just recently, and they back in the early 90s they needed a return warranty management system, and there was no systems for that in SAP, or no options to do that. So they had to build it themselves inside of SAP, and they did that. And that's grown and grown and grown over time, and it's still in use. And today it's got more than 300 different checkpoints along the way, all of that developed in ABAP, the SAP programming language, with thousands of developers have been contributing to it over the years. So it's now become a monster that nobody dare touch. So of course, if they'd had the options we have today of using cloud technologies, they would have just said, all right, we'll integrate a cloud solution to SAP, or we'll build it outside of SAP using the best tools, and then there's no, you can say, there's no app scroll or code that's difficult to maintain. It'll be pretty simple. So that was just not the option back then. So there's a lot of cleaning up going on these days, where they try to replace all these very, very heavy custom programs with something nimble and modern and agile.
If you look at the type of problems that you're helping customers to succeed with and the work that you do in the ecosystem, maybe it might be challenging to put it down to three parts, but would there be kind of three predominant areas that you help customers with, or you seem to be engaging more and more about the similar challenges?
Yeah, you can say when we talk about the S/4HANA migration, if we take that as kind of the starting point, that has kind of kicked off a motion amongst the enterprises to see if they can modernize their landscape, hence the modernize ERP that I keep talking about. So it's all about figuring out how can you get back to a clean digital core with as little customization as possible. You'll never get to a zero customized core. I think that's utopia, but you get a relatively clean core. And that means that there's one motion that is all about how can we replace all these custom extensions inside the core with modern composable apps in the cloud. So that's one area where we are helping customers look at certain areas that they've customized in SAP. If they'd had ServiceNow at the time, there would have been no doubt they would have built it on ServiceNow and just integrated to SAP. So we're looking for those areas, see if we can lift them out and replace whatever they built, the monsters they built, with low-code apps on ServiceNow. The second part is going forward, because now that a lot of resources are put into these migration projects, so it's sucking up a lot of SAP resource around the world and the needs of the enterprises, and that means the business isn't necessarily getting what they need in terms of innovation and business changes, process changes during those migration projects. And I was with a large telco recently in the US, and their chief transformation officer told me that their biggest problem really was during this period, it's 7 years, $1 billion to get that migration done, was to service the business as that was going on. So somebody needed something, a quick change somewhere, but it goes into a backlog and everybody's busy on the migration project, all the budget is going that way, so nobody could deliver. And he was really looking for ServiceNow as that strategic enterprise platform to allow rapid innovation and rapid development of services and apps that integrate into SAP seamlessly. So I'd say those are kind of the main drivers behind what we're doing, and it really is one of those everybody wins type of scenarios, because it's not a zero-sum game. The more we move out of SAP that's not fit for purpose, where SAP is not really the best tool for the job, the better SAP runs, and the more the SAP experts can use their resources on improving SAP and making it run the business. And I've been working with SAP for so many years. I know how good it is, and I love SAP. So there's nothing that runs a business quite like SAP. So the more they can focus on fine-tuning that humming engine, the better the business is off.
Yeah, and I think Bill, obviously being the previous CEO of SAP, will know the full value about what that can bring. And then his not new role, but his role in ServiceNow has meant that he can see those complementary areas that they can just work particularly well and remove that friction and you're better together, as they say. So when we look at the talk that you're going to be given in Knowledge, which is in the coming days, and we're recording this in advance for people who have either attended Knowledge and want to recap, or for people who didn't get to attend Knowledge. Can you tell us a little bit about your talk? And I know you're engaging on a few different strands actually at the event.
Yeah. So I'll be doing a presentation myself, talking about this motion on how can we in ServiceNow and how can ServiceNow practitioners help enterprises modernize their SAP system, their enterprise, their ERP systems, and how we're building a business layer on top of ServiceNow that actually enables ServiceNow developers to develop apps that integrate directly into SAP. And this is very much back to this notion of being a system of action and not a system of record. So SAP is a system of record, Workday is a system of record, and so forth. We don't really have any aspirations to become a system of record. Quite the contrary. We want to sit on top of all those systems of record as a system of action, which is, allows for rapid transformation at low cost, while these heavy systems of record that are notoriously slow to transform and expensive to transform, but still, very much the backbone of a company. So we sit on top of those and connect across multiple systems, focusing on the work that needs to be done, providing a user experience that's not been seen anywhere else across multiple systems. So in effect, you can say, I was with a customer very recently. They have done 45 acquisitions over the past 20 years, and they all have different systems. And you've got to somehow find a way to sort of interconnect between those systems rather than logging in, logging out, logging in, logging out, and swivel chairing all day long, or downloading, exchanging, and compiling in spreadsheets. Putting ServiceNow on top of all those systems, you have one entry into everything that's underneath, making it super simple for the employee or the customer or the vendor, and hiding that complexity. And in the meantime, you can work on upgrading and modernizing those legacy systems. So that's one track. I'll be talking a lot about that. Then I have a presentation together with one of our really, really strong global partners, Deloitte. I'll be talking in a panel discussion with them about ERP modernization, about process optimization using ServiceNow, about clean core, the clean core motion together with Deloitte. So they are going very actively into this in a collaboration between the SAP and their ServiceNow practice, because that really is the key here. As I said before, it's not a zero-sum game. So we want SAP to win, we want ServiceNow to win, we want the customer to win. So everybody wins by doing this, and by having both the SAP practice and the ServiceNow practice engaging together with these customers shows the value of that proposition. And then I'm doing a similar presentation. I've got two presentations with Eviden. That's now it used to be Alldus. It's been spun off the SAP and ServiceNow practice into a huge global GSI called Eviden. And I'm doing two presentations with them, again, about the same thing, where they're talking about how they want to use the ServiceNow clean core technologies as part of their Elevate Now program to help customers move more elegantly and with less risk from the old version of SAP, the ECC version, to S/4HANA, and using this to both clean up and modernize at the same time. So I'll be on stage, I think, in total 4 times next week. Looking very much forward to it.
Yeah, and I think what's really good about this, Jens, is that when you're working in an organization, sometimes you think the challenges that you encounter are very, I suppose, unique to you. But the reality is that so many other organizations are either going through them, about to go through them, or have come out the end of the tunnel and have a lot of learns to have. So being able to kind of showing people the art of the possible, it's huge motivation to see what can be done. And in a lot of cases, you're standing on the shoulders of giants because you're going, actually, this is the way I'd now recommend approaching it, rather than the way we approached it, where it potentially didn't go as fluid as it could have been as well. So you want to get those trusted advisors to kind of shepherd you through those challenging situations, because we do know they can be very, very costly, but also for people's time and morale, they can really eat into them. And with so many different complicated systems, working sometimes against each other, you're just trying to create a system of truth to allow for that next best action. So I'm sure people will get an awful lot of value from your talk, Jens. Where do you see the platform evolving in the coming months? There's been so many different features added, modules added? Where do you see this experience going?
Sure. I'm sure we have a safe harbor notice and all that, because I'll be talking about future stuff and everything else. So don't go buy shares in ServiceNow based on what I'm saying or make any decisions based on that. But yeah, we if you look at the ServiceNow has always been super innovative, and we are always releasing innovation at speed at super high quality, which is something we learned. Again, we come as an acquisition. The first thing we had to do was to re-platform our technology to the ServiceNow platform. And that means living up to a lot of security standards, quality standards, and everything else. So I've been pretty impressed by the quality of work that's being done in the engineering part of ServiceNow. So if you look at it from my side, it's probably what I know the best. Is of course we're looking at the sort of the vision for what we're building is really to be able to run a scan of an SAP system or an Oracle system or Dynamics AX, whatever that might be, just an ERP system, and that will then result in a pretty precise list of the customizations that are in the system and recommendation for what should be where. So if you imagine we've got an enterprise, they've been having SAP for 20, 25 years. We run the scan and we'll say, okay, you've got, I don't know, 10,000 or 15,000 custom programs in your SAP system. And we can see that about 2,500 are perfectly suited for the ServiceNow platform. So, and if you want to move them, these are all the data objects that you need to use program by program. So you can just move them, activate the data objects, and then you are actually, even as a ServiceNow developer, working with live SAP data. So we're not talking about that they have to do any kind of integration or synchronization or anything like that. It is live SAP data that allows them to build that application right off the bat in no time. And we're doing that today. So as an example, we did a scan. We found a report that was running in the old system. And we told a ServiceNow developer with absolutely no SAP experience to build the same report in ServiceNow, and also to ServiceNow, give it the ServiceNow touch. So in less than 2 hours, that report was built in ServiceNow using live SAP data, productive, and deployed to the portal. Plus, since it's a report, you can now go and look at defining thresholds and say, okay, if the threshold is met, kick off a workflow. All of a sudden, a standard report became an actionable report on ServiceNow. And I was super impressed by someone who has never in his life touched SAP. So that notion or that route is what we're following. Really, my vision is to make it super easy for a ServiceNow developer to develop relevant applications that integrate to SAP to augment the capabilities of SAP. And that should be done in hours, not months or years. So we're getting away from projects and just going into this becoming just a part of the daily operation. Even as a business analyst, go build whatever you need, because it's guarded. As you know, we've got event management center, so we can really ensure that there's no app sprawl and trouble in that sense. So I think that's really the goal, making it easy for someone who just understands ServiceNow to extend SAP or ERP.
Jens, when you articulate like that, it shows how it's so action orientated to allow people to make better actions and kind of guide them through the process. But also, you don't have to have all the knowledge of SAP, so you can actually just provide that insight and utilize the tool. And I'm really interested to see how Citizen Zero, low code, no code, and how you're kind of bringing everybody into the ecosystem, irrelevant if they've got a technical background or not, and being able to just use the kind of problem solving skills that you have. And the more case studies that come, the more people can actually refer back to and see what they can actually do themselves in the future.
Yeah. And again, it's all about using the right tool for the job. So you should use SAP for what SAP does best, Oracle for what Oracle does best, Workday for what Workday does best, and ServiceNow for what ServiceNow does best. So I'm really, really focused on making sure people don't start building stuff on ServiceNow where it's not fit for purpose. Just as we really don't want them to build stuff in SAP where that is not fit for purpose, because a few years down the road you've got new problems. So it's all about making sure that everything works, together as a clockwork. And I think that's really key to success and agility going forward for a lot of these enterprises, because they've learned their lesson now. They've had all sorts of point applications that really don't help them. And as you start growing, you acquire additional companies, it just becomes a mess of proportions. So keeping it that architecture intelligent is really a key to success going forward.
Jens Strandbygaard, Senior Director, Product Management, leading ERP modernization and current workflows at ServiceNow. Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome, Mark. Pleasure to meet you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.